Are you ready? The Kornelia Stephanie Show. Wake up to love, your call to action. Join Kornelia as she empowers others to live heaven on earth. Kornelia teaches listeners how to be the authority over yourself, embracing your inner guru. Feel yourself uplifted into limitless expansion, integrating ease and grace in a changing world. This show will cover topics such as unconditional love, your physical body, how to be in extraordinary relationships, create financial and emotional wealth, embracing entrepreneurship in the new earth. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. It's the Kornelia Stephanie Show, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. We have our wonderful stories of hope, exactly what it is that we need right now as we're moving forward, co-creating, writing our stories, telling our stories, and making sure that they are all in alignment with everything that uplifts us to co-create our better way of life. So, my first guest today is Liesel Hill. She is a USA Today best-selling author of 3 genres. She's loved to read and write since she was a little girl, so storytelling has always been a part of who she is. She's also the creator of Fiction Author Business School and the Prolific Author Method, where she teaches authors to become master storytellers, write transformational stories that will hood their readers automatically and market them naturally and effectively to the right readers so they can eventually live off their fiction royalties. I love that. Welcome to the show today, Liesel.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Yeah, I love what it is that you're doing. So, how long have you been doing this business?
Well, as you just said, I've always been in love with stories and writing, and I've been writing my own stories as an author for more than 10 years now. But about 2 years ago, some things happened in my life that made me realize that I wanted to start a second part of the business, which is helping other authors to also achieve success in their writing. So I've been doing that part of the business for about 2 years.
So, do you mind sharing what happened? Is that
Of
something?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was in a situation, it was mostly financial, in which I was not really making quite enough off my author royalties to live 100% off them. So I was doing other odd jobs on the side. And, what I was doing, it was actually sort of a daycare sort of situation. So it wasn't related to writing. And I unfortunately had a client of mine totally kind of pull the rug out from under me and not only not pay me what was owed, but actually stole some money from me. And at the time, because I made so little money in general, I didn't have a whole lot of revenue coming in. That was a major hardship for me. And of course, it was an emotional hardship as well that happened. So I decided that I definitely did not want to be in that boat again. I knew I needed to do something to up level my business so that I could continue doing what I loved and make enough money to live off of it. So, of course, the thing that I turned to was writing. And I started to notice that I was further ahead, certainly not than all authors, but then a lot of authors who were just starting out. And they would come to me and ask me questions. How are you doing this? How are you getting sales? What are you, when I read your chapter, it's so great. How are you crafting this? Things like that. So I started my podcast, which is called The Prolific Author. And that was about 2 years ago. And I did kind of flounder a little bit at the beginning, as most, new business owners do. I wasn't sure exactly what it would look like in the end. But along the way, it started out as being kind of a financial thing for me, but I just fell in love with teaching people how to tell great stories. It's very easy for anybody to publish a book these days, which is great. I mean, that is a gift. But at the same time, it does allow them to put together mediocre stories and pop them up on Amazon and sell them. And so what really lights me up is teaching them to tell really amazing transformational stories that will actually change people's lives who read them. I really do believe, and actually it's been scientifically proven now that people who consume fiction actually gain more humanity. They gain more empathy, more compassion, because it's like practicing using your emotions when you're living vicariously through the characters. So I really do believe that if we write stories that are deeply emotional and connecting and transformational, we really can change the world through stories.
I love that. I love everything that you said. So it's fiction stories that you
Yes, I can teach nonfiction authors, but my focus is definitely fiction.
yeah. So yeah, because you can really let loose in fiction, right?
Yes.
You can really let loose and you're not so, coming at it from the uh from the biography, your own story kind of thing where I'm sure some people hold back. But you're right.
Right.
Far as everybody can write a book nowadays, and a lot of the entrepreneurs and people that are out there, that's what they're encouraged to do. Everyone should have a book, to represent their brand, right? But this is
Right.
the same thing that I say to people. uh, have a podcast, right? Have a podcast, have a book, right? Because
Yeah.
that really supports you and your brand. I'm really sorry that what happened to you 2 years ago, that was, because I'm sure it was painful. It wasn't,
Mhm.
but it definitely helped you clear some stuff from the past and also want more for your life and more for your financial independence and freedom. And like you said, I never want to be in this position again. And
Right.
what is it that I can do about it? And then what you shared was that you said, I went back to what it is that I love doing. That's
Mhm.
such a powerful message right there, because this is what we all aspire to, want to live our lives to do what it is that we love doing, what brings us joy, your own joy,
Right.
right? And
Yes.
then expressing that joy and making good income, sustaining, being financially sustainable in your business while you are doing what it is that you love.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. And even within my journey in my business, I actually had this kind of happen on another smaller scale. I originally was uh, going after two different audiences, two different kind of tiers of people. And there is one that I favor over the other, but I went after the other one that I don't favor because I thought that would be, more like the more prudent route to go.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I really focused on what I loved doing that it really felt like I really nailed everything down and that the business took off. So I think there's something to that. I think you end up having a lot more success when you're doing what you love.
So yeah, so let's really look at that for a minute, because I really want the audience to be able to uh, make the distinction between that, and especially the entrepreneurs that are watching here, because that is a big piece to it, because we are always looking to follow the prudent path, or the
Right.
the logical path, or the path that they told us to follow,
Hmm.
right? And
Right.
because you had two choices, like you said, and you went that way first. So um talk a little bit more about that.
So I honestly believe that, you know, some people can have success. You hear some entrepreneurs talking about how they did one thing first, and maybe they even had some success in it, but then they eventually, figured out what they really loved and they had more success. In my case, I just didn't have a whole lot of success. I was full of doubts. I found myself being very fearful, and I just thought that was me. Like learning to be okay in front of the camera, learning to be okay going live. I had to learn to do all of that because I was someone who was terrified of that in the beginning. But I'm sure that was part of it. But really, once I nailed down what I, really felt like what lit me up and what I was supposed to be doing, it's like it changed everything. And suddenly all that fear went away, all that doubt went away. I knew exactly what I needed to do, who I needed to talk to, how I needed to address them. So I feel like if people aren't quite getting that yet in their business, there's probably something they at least need to tweak when it comes to what they are actually, meant to be teaching. The other thing is that I really believe that anybody can, especially with the internet, the digital revolution, we're a global society, anybody can have success at anything they want to do. So there's this major misconception when we start out. We tend to say, I don't think I can make money at that, so I better do something else. And no, you can, maybe it's niche, maybe it'll take a little more time, but you can find success at anything you want to do that lights you up. You just got to be willing to do it.
That's it. That's huge right there, what you just said. You can find success at doing what it is that you love. You just have to be willing to do it.
Hmm.
That's
Yep.
that needs to be written down on a quote, a mantra. That definitely is awesome. So let's go into the writing. Let's go into the storytelling. Do you want to share with us one of your favorite stories today?
Oh man, sure. I'm somebody who grew up reading so much, and it's probably not going to be terribly what's the word, like unique or anything. I actually grew up on high fantasy, so
Hmm.
long before the Lord of the Rings movies came out, I have this memory of being, and I had to have been 4 or 5 years old. I was very little because I remember my younger brother, who's like 2 years younger than me, being in a toddler bed on the other side of the room. Okay, so I was just a little girl, and my dad, he loved the Lord of the Rings, and he discovered them when he was in high school in the 70s, and he read them every year for like 20 years or something. He would read them once a year. So he would sit in my room, like with his back against the door frame, and it was me and my older sister and my younger brother, and tell us the Lord of the Rings stories from heart, by heart. He knew them. And so I grew up on high fantasy that way. And when I got into school myself, I read Lloyd Alexander. I eventually read The Lord of the Rings by myself. Probably my favorite series is it's called The Wheel of Time, which is a massive, you know, high fantasy series. But there's just something about high fantasy that it's very epic, it's very sweeping. You get politics in there, you get battles. I've always loved the medieval setting, so a lot of what I write ends up being medieval, whether it's fantasy or historical. So yeah, I mean, those kinds of stories where you have really intense character transformations and they just so happen to be changing the external world at the same time. I mean, that's what really gets me going and lights me up, and I love stories like that.
Yes, and I mean that's what happens in the movies.
Hmm.
That's what happens in the movies. When a lot of the movies that are out there are, way before their time, but then when
Right.
we see them, it's actually those are the movies. I can't think of one right now off the top of my head, but I know that that's what happens in movies when we're watching the movies that are, the story is very well laid out and it does transform, right?
Hmm.
Is that what you?
Right. And yeah, sorry. That is actually what I teach. So many people, when they come to storytelling, they start with the plot. They start with what happens, and understandable why that's where they would start. That's how we talk about stories. That's the biggest part of what we see of them. But what I teach is that you have to start with the internal transformation. You have to start with the character transformation and how they change. And I will say that most authors, they do know that their character has to change. They do know that there has to be a little bit of a dynamic, shift throughout the story. But most of them also, it's kind of backburnered. It's not the thing that they focus on the most. So, what I teach is to start by figuring out your theme and the emotional heart of your story, and then you can plan your plot around that. And so, what it is really is planning your story from the inside out rather than the outside in. And that creates a much deeper, more cohesive story. I always think of it like an infinity sign, that just sort of feeds into itself. And that's the way that your story should be. But you can only really craft it that way if you start with the internal.
Yeah, it's really good. That's really good. While you were talking, I was thinking, how are you doing your teaching? Do you do it online, or are you doing retreats, or how are you doing this?
Yeah, mostly online because I was still kind of, I literally started my podcast about 3 months before COVID hit. So there wasn't a whole lot of chance to do in person. I've had a few students that happen to live by me or were good friends of mine who I've met up with in person, but mostly it's done over Zoom and through online courses.
Okay. Yeah. The reason why I'm asking is because I'm personally putting on a writer's retreat
Hmm.
in the early part of next year, and what you're teaching, what you're talking about, would be perfect for. Uh,
Yeah,
that's why I'm saying, you could be doing retreats right now,
right.
where you can invite people to come and have an experience with you for the whole week, and
Hmm.
could be taking them through that and they walk away with their story, their book, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's fun to be
Yeah,
able to come together with a group of people and do that work together, focused, right?
yeah,
That's
for sure.
really fun. So that's something else that you can put into your uh, you know expansion of your business as you're
Yeah,
growing,
definitely.
because that would be fun to do. So, okay, so I know that, we don't have that much time as far as storytelling is concerned, but do tell us a story in like 5 minutes, something that just you can share, something that you've already written in the past, something that will just give us an idea.
Why don't I share? I have a short story prequel to a high fantasy series that I'm writing, and it is about dragons.
Oh, good.
I actually wrote this story as part of a competition. It was just originally like 7,000 words long, a short story. And then I had so many people come up to me and ask me if I was going to expand it into a series, which I hadn't really considered at that point, but I am working on that now. There is a little boy named Wenlin, and he is an orphan who lives in a tiny village. And this is a very medieval setting. It's a medieval village. And he is actually kind of a slave. He works in a scullery to, one of the town council. But there is a time each year when a man who is a dragon rider, he is one of the harpy servants, comes to the village, and the dragon riders are the people who are kind of the government of this land. So they come to each village just to see, touch base, see how things are going. And he's very excited, Wenlin is, because he wants to see this dragon. So he and his good friend Kanya, they're not supposed to go to this. They're supposed to stay in the scullery, but they sneak out and they go to the main square and they climb a tree so that they can see the dragon land in the square. And this massive dragon, he's totally in awe of this. And this man who rides the back of this dragon. Well, while the man is there, Wenlin slips and falls out of the tree right into the square where this dragon is. And the dragon, roars at him, and he really thinks he's about to get roasted and eaten. But the dragon rider comes up to Wenlin, and he's clearly conversing in some way with his dragon, and in a way that they can't hear. It's kind of a telepathic sort of conversation. And then the dragon rider tells the town council that the dragon has identified Wenlin as someone who has the ability to become a dragon rider. He actually has magic in his veins that would allow him to do that. And of course, the town council is not too happy about that because this is just a slave boy and they can't believe that would be the case. But the dragon rider ends up taking Wenlin with him, and he leaves the village, leaves everything he's ever known behind. And that night, they don't quite get to where they're going, so they stop for the night to sleep. But the dragon rider tells him that they have to conduct a ceremony. He simply uses a knife to cut Wenlin's hand, just a small cut, and the dragon breathes fire on his hand. And Wenlin feels this fire rushing through his veins. And he doesn't know what's going on, but it's kind of painful. And he kind of cries out that it hurts. And the dragon rider is very calm and very kind to him. And he says, I know, but give it a minute, it'll be okay. Well, next thing Wenlin knows, he's waking up and he can't see anything. He can't open his eyes, but he feels this sort of kind of like a prison, but it's brittle around him. So he pushes out of it and breaks through it with his hands and feet. And when he comes out of it, he is in dragon form, and he has been transformed into a dragon. He is somebody who can go back and forth between human and dragon form. And then he kind of embarks on this new life as a dragon rider who can actually transform himself into a dragon. And that is where the story ends. And that is where, well, some years later, the series will pick up with him being more like a teenager. In the story, he was about 8 years old. So I really liked the idea of that because it's the physical manifestation of someone who transformed themselves to live a different and hopefully better life.
That's fabulous. Yeah, definitely. You had me engaged in every word you were saying. But, definitely seeing the visuals as you were talking about. And
Good.
that's really what it's about in storytelling, is engaging the audience to be captivated by what you're saying, not just mentally, but emotionally, where,
Yes.
that is where you're really drawn in. And so you did that very well. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
that. Yeah.
Sure.
So, and I like the idea that you're going to have a series of this, and
Mhm.
you're going from young boy to teenager, and then it's going to evolve from there. So that's
Right.
really cool. So, what about how do you, because in your bio you said that you help, authors write and publish their stories, and also support them in, financially sustaining, marketing their books. And so, how do you do that?
In terms of the writing, I teach them questions to ask that gets them to the emotional heart of their story, like I said. So that's just a whole process that I teach in my storyteller accelerator program. Beyond that, I then teach them how to use the internal to market. Um, Most authors, not all, but most are very introverted, and they have a hard time with the marketing side of things, with the business side of things, which a lot of people do. Obviously, it's not just authors. But why do we feel that way? We feel that way because it feels kind of slimy, and we don't want to ask people to buy our books. And if you use the internal, what I've found is that it's more like just talking to peers who can geek out about the book with you. Like if I'm writing high fantasy about dragons, the people that I am drawing to me are people who like to read high fantasy about dragons. So if I use the internal and what they call the tropes, which would be dragons, medieval, night king, things that are in the story, all I have to do is say, this is what the story is about. So I'm not saying buy my book. I'm saying, I think you might like this. This is what it's about. And it becomes not slimy anymore. It's not a, broadcasting sort of marketing. It's more like, let's share our mutual love of this kind of story. And so it makes marketing a lot easier, and more doable. And it gives, especially when authors know how to do it and what parts of their books to market, it helps them with confidence to ask. And so they're not feeling so gun shy about it. So I teach them that. I also can teach more practical things like ads, how to do ads, things like that.
Well, because what a lot of people don't realize, they think when they're writing a book or they've published a book that that is all. And now all of a sudden they're going to have all this money, right? And that,
Right.
they don't realize that once you write a book and you publish a book or get it published, now you're in the book selling business. And
Right.
like you said, most people, they're not natural at marketing because they feel that they don't feel good about marketing something that they've published, because maybe even they're coming up with their own self-worth issues around all of that, and they're just not feeling good about it. But I like the way that you, again, bringing them back to the internal, the thing that inspired the author to again write
Right.
the story to begin with, and then build that bridge, that commonality of who they're speaking to, and this is what we have in
Right.
common, and that way. And so that's really fun. So let's tell the audience where they can, first of all, look you up on social media, find out about you, find out about your programs, and let's tell everybody how to get there.
Okay, great. Yeah. As I said, my podcast is called the Prolific Author Podcast. You can listen to that anywhere you listen to podcasts. As far as social media, I am at the Prolific Author just about everywhere. I think on Instagram, it's the _prolific author. I also just started on TikTok about a month ago, a little over a month ago. So I do writing tips there, just little TikTok writing tips. And I do have a free PDF for authors if they're interested. It's called 10 plot thickening events that every bestseller includes. So it's a way to recognize, the commonalities in story. It's what I call the human template, the way to pull readers through the story, because all human beings absorb story in exactly the same way. So if you kind of know what those are, you can make use of those when you're writing your story, and just know that you're going to hook your reader because you're doing that. So you can get that at bit.ly/10 plot. And the other thing is, I'm getting ready to do a boot camp at the end of August. It's August 22nd through 26th. It's called Find the Heart of Your Story Boot Camp. Totally free for authors. It's going to be 4 days. I'll go live and just teach some stuff, and it'll be super fun. So if anyone wants to come hang out at that, you can find it you can register at bit.ly/storyheart, and make sure to capitalize the S and the H, because otherwise I'm going to give you an error message.
Well, I definitely want to come to that, and I want to bring other people with me. So,
Yeah.
what I want to do is next week, when you see this video posted on social media, because we do the audio and video, please, Liesel, put those links in the description below in
Okay.
Facebook or wherever on YouTube, because it's in both places. It goes to Facebook, it's on YouTube. But if you could put those links, then that way people can just click on it and register right there while they're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love to.
Great. And so now we're going to switch gears. I just want to tell everyone really quick about something really cool that I have for you. And of course, within the KS Media Group. So, what I'd like you to do is go to your Google Store, go to your Play Store, and download the KS Media, MEDIA Group app. Download it on your phone. Once you have it on your phone, create your free account so that you can have access to all the content that's there. And what you're going to discover right there on the home page, you're going to discover the Beloved 7-Day Experience. And this is something that I created recently within my community because I feature the world's best leading influencers in their field of expertise from around the world to support you to be inspired in your life and to create your best life. And so, what is the Beloved 7-Day Experience? It's like a menu. So, basically, on the home page of the app, you're going to come and you're going to see, oh, what do they have on the menu today? And you're going to see, oh, let's take a look. Oh, on Monday, what they have is they have Stuck to Unstoppable with Peggy Bell, and it's 10 minutes. Well, I've got 10 minutes. I want to get unstuck today. Oh, what else do they have on Monday? Peaceful You Daily with Julie DeLuca Collins. And yes, and they're all 10 minutes. Tuesday, we have Focused Exercise with Dr. Karin Lubin. On Tuesday, we have the Confidence Zone with Susan Axelrod. If you're not feeling confident in your business or your life, you've got 10 minutes, join Susan. And this is only in the app, it's app exclusive. So you have to download the app in order to be able to get it. Wednesday, Evolve Your Business with Antonina Menev, and so on. And so, even I'm going to go all the way fast forward to Saturday, Conscious Parenting with world renowned retired professor of pediatrics is teaching us conscious parenting for 10 minutes. So, the reason why I created this is because everyone has 10 minutes in their day to be able to learn something new and receive help. And it's all free. There's nothing for you to pay for, but come and put it on your schedule and get to know these incredible people that are here to support you to live your best life. So we'll see you all in just a little while because now the Shift podcast is next. And I'm going to close the show. And thank you, Liesel, so much for being here today. It's wonderful to meet you. And we'll see you all at 1 o'clock today for more stories of hope. Thanks, everyone.
You've been listening to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, Wake Up to Love, your call to action. Tune in each week on Transformation Talk Radio. Kornelia's joy is to engage others in practical ways, showing us how to live in the new earth in harmony with our true nature. For more information on Kornelia and her extraordinary work, or to listen to past shows, go to her website at korneliastephanie.com.